technology and education classroom instruction, and check out the complete IT asset management classroom instruction and safeguarding solution from Net Support.
Hi, this is Bananarama.
You are listening to the one and only Net Support Radio.
And welcome to Net Support Radio. And here we are in the studio. I'm very pleased to say we've got two guests who've joined us for today's conversation. We've got the one and only Mr. Henry Platten from eCadets and Go Bubble. Welcome, Henry.
Hi, Al. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Lovely to see you here.
Lovely
and we've
to be
also
here.
got the ICT evangelist, Mr. Mark Anderson.
Hi, Al. Nice to be here. How you doing? All right.
Good to have both of you back on Net Sport Radio.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Great to see you too, Henry.
Yes, so it's we're hoping today to cover a few bits and pieces, not least what our plans are, working collaboratively in January at the Bett show, but also a few highlights of what we've all been up to over the last month or two as well. So we've got a real mixed bag, haven't we?
Yeah, and I mean, talking about what's been going on the last couple of months, I don't think people could have failed to have missed from the wonderful chat that was there on Twitter and people coming off that there's been quite a bit of miles clocked up. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, we had the edtech 50 tour around the UK, myself and Ty Goddard from the edtech Foundation and Education Foundation and edtech UK going around the UK, kindly supported by Net Support, visiting schools all over the UK from England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. Fantastic trip, meeting lots of inspiring teachers, school leaders and children. Making a real difference using technology in the classroom. There was one school in particular we visited in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, the Seaview Primary School, and for a school that hasn't got lots of money, a school that is in a really interesting area. What Corinne Latham and her team there are doing with technology and teaching and learning is just absolutely fantastic. And the children, the conversations I was having with children in sort of year 4 about the microbits, for example, they were coding, their terminology, the language, all the rest of it. It wasn't technology on show for technology's sake. It was children who are really, deeply engaged and showcasing what can really be done in a school where technology is utilised and brought in across the curriculum in really innovative and powerful ways. And I talk about schools being technology rich, and it was a technology rich school, but it wasn't an iPad one-to-one school or anything like that. I mean, I think they've only got 30 iPads in the whole school. When you consider the number of children in the school, it's not very much at all. But like Al always lets me to sort of bring in a Bananarama line. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. And it was, whilst technology rich, it was more learning rich. Instead of having carousel activities in one classroom, we saw learning by questions. In one corner, we saw children using mindfulness apps within Class Dojo. We saw children programming microbits, other children doing quizzing with plickers, all inside one classroom, and all being used for purposeful means, not just for the sake of it.
Yeah, and I
really,
think,
really powerful.
And I think that's one of the things that I've always admired about the work that you put out, is it's always talking about the teaching and the learning, and it's that seamless move. As you're rightly saying, some schools will look at technology rich and think, well, okay, that has to be one-to-one, there has to be a range of devices, so they're device agnostic. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was one of the schools that you went to, and I loved one of the quotes they put out, and they said, we're not an Apple school, we're not a Microsoft school, we're not a Google school, we're a school.
That was that school.
Brilliant,
school,
yeah.
Exactly,
and that just had everything for me, because they clearly, they got it.
Yeah,
they understood
absolutely.
how technology isn't the be-all and end-all, it's a vehicle. To go back to the tour that you had, and it was a very impressive vehicle that you were driving around in that I saw drive past at Liverpool Docks.
I will take this moment actually to say another huge thank you. So Ty and I have been on what can only be described as a pretty rocky crossing from Dublin across to Liverpool, and bless him, there at the docks at 5 a.m. was Henry, waiting to live stream us as we came off the ferry and drove out the port. But Henry, bless him, had been spoken to by local forces, shall we say, and I was under the assumption that we weren't allowed to stop. Whereas Henry thought we were going to stop and he was going to interview us when we pulled over and came back. But I thought we couldn't stop, so he's live streaming, he's saying, here they are, and ready to introduce us. And there we are, we come off the boat, and I just drove straight past him. The poor bloke had, been up since sort of 4, travelled loads of miles to come there and meet us, and beep, 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 bye.
I think it's certainly emphasised the energy and the commitment that you had to get to the school. So I applauded you for that. But no, I think going back to the teaching and learning part, I mean, I thought it was just brilliant, and again echoes everything that you put out, Mark, and now what you put out with your solutions as well. That it's not just about the technology; it's actually how it impacts on the teaching and the learning. Why did you get involved with the tour?
I think there's a load of strands really. I mean, I have to say it was a very memorable moment watching that as that live stream happened as part of the event. I mean, there's a foundation, isn't there? We as a group have worked together along with lots of other people for many years now. And one thing that's always that great adage is, it's not about technology for technology's sake, and it's not about that's the panacea to all things. And I think sometimes people's barrier is, how do I actually leverage and get the most out of this tech? We often talk about the funding side of things, but actually schools have tech, but that doesn't mean it's effective in how it's being used. So I always love the fact of seeing Mark on his travels is always talking about getting the most out of what you've got, empowering teachers to be confident. And when you see examples as best practice where there's so much confidence both from a teacher and a student point of view that all those different activities can happen seamlessly and blend together, I think it's great. The other thing is, it's about that diversity. One of the beauties of being in education, unlike business, in business, ideas and stuff you tend to keep to yourself as part of the development of your business. And education is all about sharing, having those kind of networks of people that you collaborate with and get ideas from. And shining a light on what's happening fantastic in education with the link to technology in the UK already. Frankly, it's just bloody refreshing given there's so much negativity surrounding the landscape of schools at the moment. And I think it's important that, as well as recognising the pressures, there is people who are putting their time and effort aside to actually celebrate what's good in happening in schools and also make people aware how they could actually get on board and could aspire to do the same things. So as Net Support, we recognise that I have a good relationship with Mark, same with Ty. When I was aware of what the guys were considering doing, from my point of view, it was a case of that's a really, really good thing to be doing across schools. As Net Support, there's lots of strands. One, of course, is many of those schools are schools that we engage in with our technology platforms. And remember, Net Support on one level is about facilitating so the IT is available as a platform for educators to get out and do what they're good at, as well as a safeguarding side. But it was a fantastic opportunity for us to support it, to actually kind of sponsor it and help fund that process. But also, it was great to be able to catch up on the last day. I met the guys up in Birmingham at Shireland's Collegiate Academy. And not only we have a good chance to have a chat, but we met up with Sir Mark Grundy, who's somebody that's been at the forefront of leading the charge in terms of good technology. And what I found really interesting, not just following around and watching the different examples, both schools and some of the tech vendors are coming up with fresh ideas, often bred from educators taking that model forward, was also the concept that actually sometimes the way that you shape improvement in schools, and this was something that Sir Mark was talking about, the strategy is that you put somebody good into a school that's struggling and they develop change and move things forward. But actually their model was often what's more important is about embedding things and about having a technology system they can drop in which brings data and resources together to empower teachers in a more lasting way. And lots of stuff we talk about is about training people, giving them the power so that it's a long-lasting benefit to schools.
Yeah, and having that sort of consistent approach to how they employ that across the whole school.
Yeah,
it's all very well and good having like for want of a better word, a sort of evangelist in the school doing one thing in their classroom. But what you really need is consistency across the whole school, it happening at scale. Yeah. Because if you've only got a few pockets of these things happening, that's all very well and good for those few classes. But what you really want is that happening for every child in every classroom, for every teacher, for every learning opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think there's lots of reasons for getting involved. If nothing else, we're all on a learning journey, aren't we? And watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, unfold in front of us all around the country. It's something that I'm sure the guys themselves, very modestly say it was an important thing to do, but should be really proud of the fact that they're taking the lead and pushing that forward.
Completely.
And so anything that I think morally as a business heavily invested in education, not just on the periphery to supply things into education, to be able to support and leverage those kind of things is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's one of the reasons why I'm not just saying because he's sat next to me, but one of the things which I love about Mark's blogs, about the posts that he puts out, it's always very much about that teaching and learning aspect and about sharing it across, sharing that knowledge. And that's one of the wonderful things, as you say, Al, about the education sector, is people are happy to share. It's giving them that opportunity. And I think that's what Net Support's backing for the EdTech Tour has done. It's give those people a voice to be able to share it and celebrate it.
And it wasn't all tech. I think it was at Jon Tait School where they had the remembrance wall with the poppies.
Yeah.
I mean, what a fantastic way of engaging kids and understanding the association between the lives lost and understand that process. And seeing the pictures that you guys shared from there, I thought was something really quite special.
Yeah.
It was a really sort of touching moment. For those listening who didn't know, so Jon Tait is Deputy Head Teacher at Acklam Grange in Middlesbrough, and 3,173, I think, is the number. Soldiers died from Middlesbrough in the Great War. And if you search the hashtag edtech50 or hashtag AGS Pride, which is Acklam Grange School Pride, you'll find examples of this thing happening at their school. And they've got this poppy wall. They're not actual poppies, they're acrylic poppies, but for every soldier who died, there is a poppy on the wall. And underneath each of the poppies, these little acrylic poppies, is the name of the soldier, and there's the name of the person who's placed that acrylic poppy onto there as well. It's a fantastic display. It's been supported by the National Lottery, all sorts of things. But it was a really touching and poignant moment. Say myself and Ty got to put our own poppies down there. We have our own soldier, and we're sort of linked to there. And that memory, it was really touching. I don't mind admitting I was really upset by it. It was a really fantastic thing. But like I say, it wasn't all about technology, and it goes back to what you were saying, Henry, I think, as well, and sort of the mantra and the reasons why you get involved with the projects you do, Al, here at Net Support, is because education's a force for good. We're in it thinking about the future, our children, our children's children, solving the problems of tomorrow, all this sort of thing. And this is why I love working with you guys, because it's not just a case of looking at the product, although the product obviously does help with teaching and learning and moving things forward and providing sort of security and so forth and so on. But you're really, really keen to, as a company and as an individual, those who are listening who don't know about Al, his work is much more broad and wide than just the work he does at Net Support. You've got the chair of governance across a whole mat. You're working with lots of schools locally as well. You were telling me recently, actually, Al, about a project you've been doing actually in one of the primary schools with a bus. Is that right?
A very exciting project with a bus, and a really good example about about sharing ideas and picking up new things. So, as well as chairing a mat in Peterborough, I'm also a governor at a local authority infant school. And a big shout out to the head there, Becky Waters, and Dogsthorpe Infant School. Fantastic school. Been involved there 4 years. And as you'd expect, often in older buildings, 70-year-old building, space is always a commodity. And being an infant school, sometimes the perception is tech doesn't necessarily have such a big role to play. And spending my time with the likes of yourselves and many others, my belief is that actually tech has a part to play at every age, if it's appropriate, and so on. So what happened was basically we reached out to a bus company who had got some old buses that were being retired, a coach, and they very generously, Grays of Ely, a shout out for them as well, donated a coach to the school, which provided us with the fabric and the space to create a new classroom. We wanted it to be a learning journey, keeping the bus theme. So the bus was painted bright red, and it has the school message and the learning journey along the side of it. And then creating this space, we wanted to provide something where all the children were excited about the opportunity to go out of the classroom and enter this space. And in early years, lots of the support which we're talking about is about building children's imagination and creativity, which they then translate, hopefully, into their writing skills, their reading skills, their oracy, and all those other bits and pieces. And as somebody who's not a pedagogy expert, I still look at it from my experience and say, if we want to see children learning without realising they're learning, working through play and all the other aspects. And so looking around on my travels and meeting up with plenty of people, it was like, right, we can do something similar here and we can set a bit of a benchmark. So I started off seeing some fantastic stuff like the Augmentifyit, the team, have some fantastic resources, cards and so on that can be used with iPads, so you can bring to life ocean creatures or planets. And so for younger children, ocean creatures has an association. Every child loves to see a shark in their hand or a whale or something else. There's some fantastic resources like the Merge Cube that can be used, which along with supporting apps allows a child to hold a nice squidgy cube in their hand, but they can access a fairy tale castle and interact with it, and it can inspire ideas of what they do, or they can create a friend or an alien that they can write stories about, or who is this alien and what they do. We also looked at things like the virtuality tea, so suddenly the children were amazed to see that they could see what was happening inside their teacher, and they could start to talk about it. Merge Cube do a fantastic app, Mr. Body, which supports that, which means that for the younger children, just the sense of, a brain inside a head and the heart and the system, and a chance just to interact and start to give thought and ideas to it. So we combine those things to say, well, look, with a small resource of iPads, the kids have got lots of different types of things where they can bring ideas to life and spark imagination and discovery in a safe way. And obviously the bus we wanted to make nice and engaging. The team at Augmentifyit provide us with some nice stickers to go around the bus so the kids can explore, find beetles and bugs, and they suddenly magically come to life, or butterflies will fly up the wall of the bus. Which was fantastic. So that was a really good thing. And then moving on from the AR side, and they've got loads of other apps, and I hold my hands up. My innovation was to go out there and look for stuff, and I saw the fantastic stuff that you and Steve Banbury did with your periodic table for apps.
Cool.
And so that's a really good reference point. Some are appropriate for early years in Key Stage 1, others are along that pathway. But in the spirit of educators out there sharing best ideas, actually, where there's a will, it's really easy to find stuff. The important thing is finding stuff that you trust their judgment that it's a good, appropriate app. We've also put Class VR in there, so we've got headsets which provides Key Stage 1 content. So again, in an area where many of the children perhaps don't have the best experiences in life, the opportunity to travel and explore the world, providing the opportunity to visualize and see and step out into a rainforest in Guatemala or somewhere else is a really important thing. And then of course alongside that is putting the experiences in the hands of the teachers, that confidence bit. So as part of that, I sat on the bus. We had 8 classes as we announced the launch of the bus, and the first people going on their virtual reality journeys are the teachers. And we've told the students the teachers have first got to go and explore these worlds, and then they'll come back and then they'll take them on those adventures. And that's a way of making sure that we're at the right thing that I know you're very focused on, Mark, about empowering the teachers to have confidence in that journey of using that technology. Of course, it helped that Father Christmas and some live reindeer attended, and small local authority infant school, very good support from the local authority. They came to support the opening of it. And for me, that's kind of as you know, I love getting involved in schools, and it's something that's very much a passion for me, but seeing that kind of fusion between what I can do to support schools in terms of perhaps more the business and strategic management, but dovetail that with bringing the technology and experiences and connecting. I should put a shout out, we also had Trilby TV there, Trilby,
excellent.
The guys there.
Neil and Ben.
Neil, absolutely. Well, Neil Emery came along to the opening. And I know Neil and Ben quite well. Not surprisingly, a year ago, one of the things we did was get Trilby TV in the school. And again, the initial questions were, why do we need this digital signage? But actually, rather than it being just an information panel, which it works as that fantastically. It's actually now a showcase celebrating fantastic student work, and it's constantly being updated by staff on their iPads. We can see Twitter feeds. In the staff room, you've got news and updates that are happening about the school. Even parents stood outside, there's TVs facing out of the windows where they can see information about what's happening or celebrating kids' work. So again, knowing the right people, recognising those kind of innovative solutions that fit so well with that.
I see all this, though, as not being technology. Yeah, there's lots of technology there, but knowing Peterborough like I do, for those who are listening, I did my first sort of 10 years of my teaching career in and around Peterborough, and so I know the area pretty well, and it's not the most affluent of areas where this school is. And actually, a lot of the time, I work with some schools in North Tyneside, and some of the families there are sort of 5th generation unemployed, and it's not about getting great grades often and all this sort of stuff. It's more about actually just raising those aspirations and doing things like you've done with that bus in Dogsthorpe. That's a fantastic thing to do. And getting the local council involved, I'm sure the local press were involved. There's been a piece about it. The family can see it. Sharing things through Trilby TV in there. It's all about changing that culture and that ethos and raising the aspirations, not just for the children sometimes, but for the parents as well. And all that's happening through the technology that you're helping put in place there.
Absolutely right. And I think that the key one, often the starting point, is having a will. If you've got strong leadership, as we have at the school, you've got a strong governing body that say, actually, you know what, let's do something different. Let's try this. And I think your comment about, different schools, the different children, the cohorts, their life opportunities so far, it's all about broadening those opportunities and those aspirations. And I, for one, always have a bit of a compromised position, because being responsible for a multi-academy trust, ultimately you're judged by the powers to be, Ofsted particularly, about grades. It's about results and outcomes that are measurable. But actually, if you wind the journey back to an infant school and onwards, I believe actually it's about experiences. The broader the experiences, the more things young people are exposed to that makes them aware of the bigger, wider world and what's out there, the more rounded person you end up at the end. And I think somebody with broader life experiences, and maybe, dare I say it, one less qualification than they might have had, is far more important in terms of their opportunities to be successful in life. Not that I wish anyone to get one less qualification, but
no, absolutely.
But the current curriculum focus at secondary, I don't want to go off on a political thing because politics is not my thing, but the focus now in terms of measuring progress 8, attainment 8, is very much about those core subjects, those filling those buckets for a school to be measured on it. And what that means is lots of the periphery areas don't get the same focus and attention, because you're double scored for English and maths, you've got your sciences, a language, ideally humanities, and so on. And actually, in the early years, there's an opportunity to, alongside making sure that the children are developing their reading, writing skills and so on, to actually say, just let them get a sense of all those exciting opportunities. That will feed their thirst down the line and give them that opportunity to actually enjoy education, because there's stuff they want to find out about, stuff they've seen and want to discover further on.
I completely agree, and I'm all for a knowledge-rich curriculum. I think it's really, really important, and schools do need to, hit these benchmarks and so forth and so on. But it's also really important for children to have an experience-rich curriculum, where they, Ofsted in the past used to talk about a broad and balanced approach, didn't they, to your curriculum? So it's school isn't just about your qualifications, and absolutely, like you say, they are important and so forth and so on. But again, using things like you've put into place on the bus, give those children those opportunities to achieve and do things that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the technology. And again, when we think of the likes of like Ruben Puentedura and with his SAMA model, and Kohler and Misha with their TPAC and things, it's about thinking about those times when it's right to or not to. And I think it's an absolutely brilliant way, using the bus and the sort of tools you've got on there. You can give those children those opportunities that they wouldn't have if it wasn't for that. Really, really powerful.
Absolutely right. Now, the final bit, of course, on that, which ties all the way back full circle to Mark and Ty's visit, was that's all about the edtech 50 schools. So one thing we're doing at Dogsthorpe Infants, and I would urge other schools to do the same, is we're entering in the edtech 50 schools awards, because what Ty is trying to do as part of that process is to make sure that schools that are doing something different, something successful, something innovative with technology, actually enter and share that information so that we can actually pull those bits together. So I would certainly urge anybody to have a quick Google or have a look on Twitter for the hashtag edtech50schools. Mark, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. So I struggle with the shortened version, but again, if you look on the hashtag, and I'll find it before the end of the broadcast so I can sort of give it to you properly. But again, look for the hashtag edtech50. On Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram, and you'll find links through to where you can nominate your school, or if you are a parent or somebody in the local community who knows that your school is doing something fantastic around developing teaching or learning with technology, then you can nominate your school through a very simple, quick and easy to fill in form, and there's a whole bunch of judges, and so people, for example, like Corinne Latham, who's the head teacher at that school in Northern Ireland, she's a judge on the panel. I'm a judge on the panel. There's a whole bunch of other judges, and we'll be going through. And the sort of 50 that are selected will then be invited to come to the House of Lords. So the sort of closing date for nominations is sort of mid to end of January. I think 18th of January rings a bell. And then after that, you will have a month or so to sort of do nominations and judging and all the rest of it. And then there's a sort of a award ceremony at the House of Lords later on, I think in April. So, fantastic opportunity for schools to not only share, but also to sort of showcase the stuff that's going on. And it was interesting you were talking about your visit when you came and saw us on a Saturday with Sir Mark Grundy, because there's a lot of parity between the sort of things you're trying to do here. For example, at Net Support, we're linking to local universities and so forth and so on, but also, because they're doing similar things at Shireland, but also that thing around sort of building sort of networks and hubs of schools that are doing great things, and so that they're doing similar things. You're trying to do that sort of thing with Net Support as well. Ty and I are trying to do that sort of thing with edtech 50 as well. It's a great time, isn't it?
All these things interlink, and completely unexpectedly, talking with Mark and yourselves, they've entered subsequent bids for free schools in the next wave. One of the things they're looking to do is an all-through school linked and associated with the Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, a music-based all-through school, which is fantastic. But as it just so happens, the trust that I chair, our core school, the pillar school in the trust, is an all-through school. And our executive head of the trust, she's currently completing her doctorate, which is specifically on research on the benefits of all-through education. So completely as a side, I've got two people I can now connect who I know can both learn and share with each other as well. And that's the beauty of what we do, getting out, meeting people and discovering those opportunities. As it happened, whilst I was spending the day on the bus with all the other team at Dogsthorpe who were doing an amazing job, I also had the opportunity to do a phone-in conversation from just outside the bus with another good friend of ours, Ian Rockey, down at Westwood Radio, who just does the best school radio. No disrespect to anybody else who's doing fantastic school radio, but I just think they do an amazing job. And at the same time I was there, they also had the lovely Russell Prue, who was down there to join in the conversation. And for those of you that are listening to many of our Net Sport Radio broadcasts, you'll know when we're at Bett, Russell absolutely is our lead. He's the man that controls and broadcasts for us on Net Sport Radio. And he's been an amazing supporter, and we're talking to you live right now on some Anderton Tiger kit, so it all comes full circle in terms of those skills. But that's another way where technology kind of is sitting at a lower level, but it's an enabler to allow us to be in Peterborough, engaging with students down in the West Country, have those conversations. And we're going to talk about Bett after we've had a slurp of coffee and an interlude. But again, we'll be dovetailing and meeting up with some of his students there as part of that process.
Oh, fantastic.
And I think, as you were already saying, going back full circle to this part of the segment, talking about that sharing of knowledge. Ian's not just the school radio, but also how Ian used radio to actually share out his own podcast. And then share and disseminate knowledge around the world about what he's doing in his own classroom as a teaching head, because he actually has 3 half days a week where he goes into the class and sharing that knowledge about apps that he's using, about technology that he's deployed is absolutely fantastic. And again, the network that he's building up through it, it's just a fantastic piece to listen to.
I can't think of a Bananarama quote, but I can refer to him as a top banana in that case. He's a really good guy. So we're going to take a quick interlude, have a slurp of coffee, and we'll be right back to talk about what's happening and what's coming up for the rest of this year and driving into Bett in January. So we'll be back in a second.
Net Support Radio for the latest in technology and education news.
And you're back with us here on Net Support Radio with the fantastic Al Kingsley and the wonderful Mark Anderson.
Hi, Henry.
And welcome back after that break.
So, it's great to be here. And right, let's have a look to the future. So we're coming up to Christmas now. The other side of Christmas, it's that time. It's not a case of the New Year's resolutions, it's Bett and all things Bett. So, Al, what have you got coming up for Bett? What are you looking forward to? What are the plans?
I've got lots of things I'm looking forward to. A few I'm not least the bill. But lots of things that we are working hard towards producing for Bett. And I think it's a nice follow-on to what we were discussing earlier, which is some vendors attend Bett and they have a stand, they showcase their solutions and have interaction with customers, and everyone's happy and dandy. At Net Support, we're a little bit different in the sense, I think, and certainly want to work towards, we want our space at Bett to be something that's more collaborative, a place to welcome others to come and share their experiences, share some really exciting practice that's happening in the edtech world, pedagogy, the broader sense. So we have significantly increased our space at Bett for this year, more than double what we had last year. So that in itself provides us with a platform and space to do lots of really exciting things. So as well as our core centre point where we'll be showcasing our different products, and possibly I shall share a few of those updates with you in due course. We also have a nice new presentation area where we'll have all sorts of people coming to talk and present about different ideas. Our complementary solution to the core NetSport brand, Really School, will be joining us on the main space. We were at Bett Futures last year. We've now moved across to be part of the broader NetSport offering.
Brilliant.
NetSport Radio, of course, will be broadcasting live with the wonderful Mr. Prue every day, interviewing people and guests that come to the stand and then broadcasting live, typically at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to the airwaves and everybody that was unfortunate enough not to attend. And as well as all of the NetSport crew, we've also got some other friends who are joining us on the stand. One of those friends you'll know quite well because it's you, Henry. So we have the lovely Henry who will be joining us, and eCadets and Go Bubble will be on display for people to come and explore and have a look at, as well as learning more in the broader e-safety world and advice from Henry. And you'll be one of our speakers each day throughout the event. And it would be inappropriate to miss out the other person sat around our broadcasting studio today. The wonderful Mr. Anderson will also be working with us at Net Support throughout the week, and will be sharing all sorts of ideas and wisdom each day, presenting on the stand as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Yeah. It's going to be exciting. We've also got the Association of Network Managers in Education, a really good group of people all across the country that are looking at technology and how to support schools operationally. And they're also going to be based on our stand as well, and will be a good meeting point. They'll also be talking and presenting about different ideas about how they're using technology for best practice. So a real mix and a bit of a crew on the stand. But I suppose we'll perhaps come on to some of the product announcements in due course, but I suppose the big thing really for us is all the different things and reasons why people might want to come along to a NetSport stand in terms of the presentations and speakers that are there. So you folks know quite a lot of the people who will be attending that we've certainly have committed so far, so maybe it's a good chance to share from your point of view. Mark, have you got
I've got a few I can share. And again, it goes really back to what we were talking about before our coffee break, which was the work that NetSport does to sort of share and facilitate networking opportunities, learning opportunities. I don't think I'm sort of firing too far off piste here when I talk about sort of Learn Live theatres at Bett. Those speakers there are sponsored. The stories we used to hear, which were just direct from schools, sort of unchampioned, people just sort of bringing their stories down were great. But what's great with the standard Net Support this year is we've got lots and lots of people coming from schools from all over the country. There's no sponsorship, there's no ulterior motive. They're just sharing great stories from their schools, which is something which I think is missing from Bett as a whole. And so it's really, really powerful, and for me personally, I think is a real highlight of not only Bett but also of what Net Support is trying to do. So we've got teachers like Adam Chase, you've met before, primary school teacher,
great speaker, Adam.
Computing teacher from Manchester,
fantastic.
Geeky teacher on Twitter. We've got Louise Stone coming over with her primary school digital leaders. We've got James Donaldson, who's a additional learning needs coordinator at Cardiff and Vale College, coming and sharing about how they're making a difference with supporting learners with additional learning needs.
And a great Twitterer. He always has lots of pearls of wisdoms and experience that he shares online as well.
No, he's a great guy. In fact, I'll do a shout out because I'm doing a charity disco with 80s disco in a few weeks, and
are you smashy or nicey?
I'm both.
Okay.
Expect Bananarama and other 80s bands to be played. But that's a thing, trying to raise money for cancer charities. But he's a really great guy. He's coming along with Hannah Matthias. They're a Microsoft showcase establishment as well, so they'll be showing some great stuff around what they're doing with all sorts of technologies there. We've got Paul Tullock coming down from North Tyneside. He's an Apple Distinguished Educator, great guy. And we're sharing sort of things they're doing at Richardson D's Primary School up in North Tyneside. We've got Julian Wood, Ideas Factory coming down. They're all from the north, aren't they?
But you talk about Adam, Paul, Julian. I mean, I've seen them present on some of the, like the Tech on the Tyne events and so on. I mean, they're all fantastic presenters and have got great ideas to share. So we're really blessed to have them coming along. And I don't think that's the end of the list by any stretch of the imagination.
No, speaking of Tech on the Tyne, though, can't miss out Mr. Animate to educate himself as well.
Martin.
He's coming down with his digital leaders, I believe, as well.
Martin and his team from his school are coming down. Lanchester
That's
EP
right, yeah.
are coming down, and they came down last year, but he's bringing some of his digital leaders students down. They will be sharing some wisdom online on Netsport Radio as well, and another great way to get some young people onto the stand and sharing their experiences, yeah.
And I think it's lovely, the presence of young people that you're bringing into Netsport. I think, just as you were saying, Mark, for me, the way the Netsport stand is looking for this year for Bett, it's very much going back to the Bett of old and the benefit of Bett in terms of the pedagogy and the sharing. So I know Ian Rockey's bringing some kids down as well. Claire Lotriet is coming across from Henwick with some of her digital leaders to share. Osi is coming over as well to share examples of how it's all working with safeguarding and technology, really just to share that benefit to others. And that, again, it distills back to the whole message and why we have this relationship and friendship between the three of us, why we do these podcasts. It's all about sharing. Absolutely. And that, I think that's the just what's so exciting about Bett with Net Support for this year. It's that whole culture and just bringing that across and giving people that voice and the opportunity to hear. I mean, particularly, I'd even go one step further and call it's almost like a safeguarding theatre that you've created on the Net Support stand in the presence, where people can come and listen, not just to the fantastic Mr. Anderson and me, but to others who are sharing that knowledge.
I think the nice thing is, and it's about balancing each day. We're going to have some fantastic speakers in the safeguarding arena, but also in using technology effectively in the classroom, the innovation side, the pedagogy side. It's having lots of different voices, and everybody comes to Bett to look for different reasons. But if they've got that opportunity in advance to know that people they respect in the education space are speaking at different times each day, hopefully that gives them a reason to stop by, come and have a chat.
So how can we're building the sort of daily schedule at the moment, sort of lining up when these people are going to be speaking and what have you. But how if people are listening to this radio show now and are thinking, oh, cracky, well, I'm going on Thursday. How can I find out what's happening on Thursday on the Net Support stand? So, Bett, how can people sort of find out about what's going on?
We'll be directing them to the Netsport software website. There will be shortly a nice big Bett swoosh, which will take them to a page that will not only give them highlights of what we're up to, it will show them under schedules daily of who will be speaking on the stand. We'll also be introducing some little pen portraits of all the different speakers, so people get a sense of what they're all about. Most people will know many of the names, but not all, I'm sure. And we'll use that alongside the Netsport Group Twitter feed to send out information in advance of Bett, so people have got plenty of time to schedule what they're doing. And the list continues to grow. We mentioned Trilby TV in our earlier segment. They'll be there talking about how digital signage can be used in different ways. I'm hoping Ty's going to be about, and Ty will be talking about the work that he's doing in Education Foundation. So, it's going to be a really, really rich range of different people that are presenting. And the number one thing from our point of view at Net Support, and you guys have been on our stands in previous years, it's about having fun. Genuinely, 4 days at a trade show, meeting different people. People are tired, people's feet are sore from walking around. Often they've travelled a long, long way, and it's important. It genuinely is important to turn up and have friendly faces and people that just want to, have a chat about the good things that are happening. And if you've got problems, have people, problems in terms of looking for solutions for how do I do something different? How do I get the most for my money? I've got this technology. How do I get the best out of it? My kids are amazing. I want to get online. How do I make sure they're safe? Whatever the questions are, is having different trusted educators, that they can tap into. And I think, we're really blessed that there's a really good pool of people that we all have a good relationship with that we can bring together. Mr. Prue will be talking about radio as well at the event, because in my ignorance, when I first met Russell many years ago, I looked at radio and thought, well, that's nice, as a nice add-on to the curriculum in terms of giving kids something else to do that's exciting. But in no way is it an add-on, looking and understanding and seeing how children engage. The idea that it builds planning, it builds confidence, it builds that oracy, that spoken word, listening skills, writing skills, planning and preparing for it. It's actually at the heart of the curriculum in so many different ways. And I think that's those elements where we can all learn something, and we're all perhaps naive of some of the additional benefits. So hearing about his experiences across recently in a lot of schools in Wales, hearing Ian Rockey's experiences, the same way as Martin and his team bringing the students in, and some of the schools that you alluded to that are also coming in to meet us. I think it's important that we don't just assume that the technology that we think and we're advising works well. It's always really important to have that litmus test of actually here are the young people and here are the teachers that are actually evidencing the impact. And impact is what it's all about ultimately, isn't it? We can measure the different scales of things that we want to have impact in, experience, outcomes, progress, and all the rest of it. But that's what it's all about, And there's also lots of other fun stuff that we'll be doing on the Net Sport stand throughout those 4 days. There's 25 of our team there for the Bett week, so I imagine the drinks bill in the evenings is probably going to be fairly hefty, and probably during the day as well. But that's all part of the fun.
So whereabouts did you know whereabouts sort of in the footfall the stand is going to be at the moment?
We do. Bett is a fairly regimented creature, which is depending on how long you've been exhibiting at Bett, and I think we're getting close to the 20-year mark now. Once you've got your stand, you can rebook your stand for the following year. So we are where we were last year, stand D120, which is on the main drag running across the central spine of the show. And directly next door, stand D130, we're there as well. And the two stands will be side by side. So expect what you saw last year and double it and a bit. And that will be the Net Support family. So really easy to find. Again, we'll be signposting, we'll be providing guides, and it's going to be a really, really, really good event for us, and it is the start of the year in terms of how we then springboard launching technologies to dovetail with Easter holidays, moving into planning budgets and planning what we're going to do in the summer holidays for those more significant changes and putting things in place. It's going to be good.
And it's quite a special year, isn't it? A special anniversary.
It is a special anniversary, and certainly in the edtech space, we're very proud of it. It's a tough place, and technology moves on. So good solutions come and go, and that's the nature of the beast. But it's our 30th anniversary, so absolutely next year we'll be celebrating the fact that we're 30 years young, and I'm very proud of the fact that as a business, I think that reflects a lot about the fact that we must be doing something right. We must be hitting the right mark, and I think the core and the key to what we do is to not assume, but to listen and be part of the education space. And if you develop and work with schools, with teachers, with students for what they need and what they want, rather than guess and tell them what they need, I think there's a better recipe for success. And it is all about that learning journey, which is right back to the bus at Dog's Thought we talked about earlier. So most of these things come full circle. You don't stop learning in life, do you? Whether you're a person or a business. So that's it, and then the dovetail on from that is all the new stuff we'll be showcasing, which I'm sure we've all got stuff we want to share. So I'm going to put it back out to you guys, which is Henry, what are you going to be showing new for eCadets and Go Bubble, particularly Go Bubble?
It's been an incredible journey for us with Go Bubble in terms of coming up with the concept 3 years ago and building it. And now the doors are fully open to Go Bubble, and we're welcoming schools from all over the world. And it's great, like some of the names we've already been talking about, have picked up Go Bubble and they're running with it, and it's the co-production phase now. But we're seeing already schools across the world are twinning through Go Bubble, and they're talking, they're collaborating. So it's sharing that pedagogy aspect of Go Bubble, how it's free, how it helps people connect, but gives them a real safe environment to be able to test and play social media before people are 13. One of the other really exciting things for me, which we're going to be sharing at Bett, is something that we've actually created together, Net Support and eCadets, which is the Online Safety Almanac. Because one of the things, the conversations that we've had and that we all have around just the wealth of research that's out there, the wealth of information that can come through, it almost feels like daily at the moment with different surveys that are out there, can all potentially put pressure on schools.
Didn't we agree to call it a Manac because I've trademarked the name Owl?
We will look at the Twitter handle of Manac to make sure that is fundamental to it. That again comes back to the whole ethos of Net Support and the work that the three of us and the wider Net Support family do in terms of taking information, distilling it, and then being able to present it in a logical, reasoned way to the end user that actually adds value and helps them. So
You've researched an awful lot of sources, haven't you?
Yeah, close to 60 different pieces of research papers, articles that have been published throughout the whole of 2018. There's some great examples in there, from the NSPCC, from Ofcom, from Internet Matters that we've drawn on those, from London Grid for Learning's DigiSafe paper that came through, and then it's a case of joining the dots and looking at, okay, what are the patterns that are coming through? So there's patterns around sexting, grooming, peer-on-peer abuse that obviously was recognised now, thankfully, in the Keeping Children Safe in Education update that came out, bullying, social media, but it's taking all of that research, taking all of that information and then drilling it right down, saying, okay, what are now the impacts for schools? What are the top tips they can do? And then again, going back to the EdTech 50 and the tool, it's then a case of, okay, well, let's reflect on case studies from schools who've actually been looking and already employing those top tips in their school environment and can share that benefit on. And that's part of it as well, in making sure that you've captured all of those aspects. One of the interesting things, going through all of the research that we did and casting out the net out and bring it all in, and then me sitting down and reviewing all of it, is I actually found in the London Grid for Learning DigiSafe report that came out, they actually mentioned e-cadets.
Very good.
Which I never knew, apart from actually sitting there and going through the whole research document, and there was the name. So that was a lovely, proud moment when I saw the name there recognised. And how about yourself, Mark? What are you looking at sharing?
So I've been working on a few things, building up to Bett. My periodic tables are always really popular. For Bett, I'm launching 2 new ones. One, I'm working on a game with Steve Banbury from Dubai. We're doing an updated version of the VR and AR apps for iOS, which I'm really looking forward to sharing. And now that iOS 12 has settled down a little bit, I'm working on another one around apps that are useful in the classroom. I'm sort of collaborating with a few schools, talking to teachers about the things that are working for them, and things that I've been doing with schools as well, some of my projects. So I'm really looking forward to sort of showcasing and sharing those resources. But for me, the best thing, the thing I'm looking forward to most really at Bett is getting involved and meeting all the people who are going to be talking and sharing on the stand. Because for me, for somebody who loves technology, and I really, really do.
Do you?
Are you sure? Oh, my word. I'm glad I was sitting down for that.
But no, whilst I love tech, you can't beat a good old-fashioned face-to-face conversation, and it's those analog bonds actually that you can start a conversation via Twitter or via whatever sort of social media or by watching a live stream or whatever, listen to a podcast, that sort of thing. But the thing that makes it real and binds you is those face-to-face interactions, those conversations you can have. And so I'm really looking forward. I didn't realise that Claire Lotriet was coming, for example, so it'll be really good to catch up with Claire again. She's always got some great things to share. Looking forward to seeing Martin Bailey, Animate to Educate. Just getting there, having those conversations, meeting new people as well. We've got Katie Henry, an American STEM teacher, coming over and sharing on the stand as well. I've not met her. We've connected many times and talked about sort of STEM and teaching and learning, but I'm really, really looking forward to hearing from her. And again, it's about bringing those sort of online friendships and networking opportunities to life, and that's the thing I'm looking forward to the absolute most. It's
I like
fantastic.
a good example recently was obviously I've followed and as I've alluded to earlier, plagiarised quite happily from your periodic tables the work you've done with Steve Banbury, and we were across at the JES Digital Innovation Summit in Dubai recently, and a chance to meet Steve and see him in action, showcasing some of the things, and I think you get a real sense of there's someone with a real passion for innovation and pushing the envelope, and that is one of those things where we're taking that face-to-face interaction and bringing people that we respect and regard online and getting a chance to actually have those conversations over a coffee and share ideas. I think it's going to be huge. I'm certainly looking forward to you releasing another update for your periodic tables, because there are some fantastic.
And actually, I'll give you a sneak preview on some of the apps later on if you like.
Should we turn the volume down slightly? Or should we?
But no, it's just getting that opportunity to be together and have those. I mean, we're all there in varying ways to sort of say you can work with us or you can buy our product, all the rest of it, which is part and parcel of what we do. Because as you said, it's a trade show, Bett. But for me, the most powerful thing is that those face-to-face interactions, that chance to meet people, share ideas, and all of that. Because for me, whilst I don't teach anymore, I'm still, fervently passionate about being somebody who sees education as a force for good, something that can sort of, make the world a better place, and all that sort of Michael Jackson kind of Earth song type stuff. But no, I'm just hugely looking forward to it. So please do come down to the stand and say with all the speakers that are going to be there, you're bound to pick up some great ideas to take away from the various presenters. See what fits for you. And look forward to seeing you there. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Good. And I suppose the final bit, which is back to Net Sport, is we've got a bit of product news to update as well, which is going to feed into what we're doing at Bett. And that's an important part of taking on board feedback from lots of the ideas we picked up last year. So I think in most of our core products, many people know us for Net Sport DNA, our kind of IT management, safeguarding solutions. We've got lots of sneaky updates from a network manager's perspective, extra tools to make it easier to maintain and manage devices. We already support most platforms. We're adding Android support, so if you've got any of those interactive screens or other devices, or you happen to have your Android tablets or your later generation Kindles, there's an opportunity to bring and dovetail those all together. That means no matter what device children are using, we've also got that link into the safeguarding, monitoring what the activity they're doing and providing that kind of intelligence, which is really important. And intelligence is a really nice thing. For most of us in the industry, the small group that focus on providing that kind of support by monitoring keywords and filtering, there generally tends to be the simple part of you identify based on keywords matching, and the quality might be different vendors, algorithms, now we do things. And then you feedback, binary alerts, it was a word that's suicide, it's a high alert, and there's imagery to support it, and it empowers you. In reality, what happens, of course, is you generate lots of activity, and somebody within the school has got to be tasked with going through those and filtering out those that require immediate intervention from the DSL and other staff, to those that are more intelligence-based that might lead on to whole school assemblies. And some schools then have to rely on a third party to actually weed through that chaff to find the stuff that's really important. And what we've really said is, look, we can take it to the next level. And there's lots of topics and conversations about AI and people's definition of AI, but we've kind of drilled down to CI, contextual intelligence, and we've really said, look, what is it that a teacher or a qualified safeguarding lead looks at when you're assessing that a keyword has been triggered? And the simple answer is, and we'll use Mark for an example, a likely candidate to have been doing something inappropriate online. Now that sounds terrible, I don't mean that. I'll use a different phrase, a likely candidate to be online gaming at lunchtime. So if we take that kind of context of here's a student and what do we want to be aware of, the first thing we look at when there's activity online is obviously a keyword's been matched, but who is that child? Are they vulnerable or not? Does that impact on their likeliness of risk? I would argue yes. What time of day was it? In school, out of school? Was it at lunchtime when they were in an unattended classroom or during a lesson? What application were they using? Was it an application that potentially allows them to engage online? Were they in Skype or were they in PowerPoint? That has an impact on risk. What websites were they on? Was it a site that we would deem to be a higher risk than others, whether it might be for grooming or for online bullying or for accessing radicalisation information? The list goes on. So we make all those judgments quite quickly in our brains about the child, the incident, and so on. But the contextual analysis goes beyond that, because it's also about what did Mark do an hour ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And the building of that picture, of course, is then all about how do we take that and say, well, actually, the risk of this child and this being something that we need to be drawn our attention to is also about what they've done before. It's about understanding the context of their behaviour, their location, the space, the time, who they are, and what they did before. And a very simple, analogy: if a child searches for the term suicide, it would flag as being something of concern. But if that child searched for other terms surrounding the topic of suicide multiple times over the last day or week, that clearly would present a higher risk that that's something that may have, they genuinely have an interest in and they're researching. So we've pulled all those bits together so that the solution now will provide risk indexes and will draw your attention immediately to a child where the risk and the need for intervention is greatest. And so that really cuts out not the middleman in terms of the qualified educationists, because they're the ones that understand the context of the child and the surroundings. But it allows you to focus on those that need it and not require third parties or lots and lots of time to weed through the chaff elsewhere.
That's incredible.
So I'm guessing then with contextual intelligence then, so it will know that, for example, if a child is searching for suicide, but it will know what lesson they're in. So let's say they're in a PSHE lesson and they're doing some research around suicide as part of their learning, it will know that and then add that to the flag and decrease the flag.
Absolutely right.
Working together.
It's the time of day, what lesson they're in, what application they're using. And, we already see in schools, in the step before that, that there will be terms that are triggered, and then on researching we'll say, well, it was in PowerPoint, and they were talking about, a World War II event, but they were using terms that could be triggered from a radicalisation, bomb making, or whatever the topic might be.
Yeah.
And so it is all wrapping all those different variables together.
That's fantastic. And this is when I see technology being so powerful in schools. It's not about replacing teachers, it's about empowering them with tools that can actually let them focus on the core business. It's far more important for that teacher, whoever it is, who's going to have a chat with this child, to actually be having that chat with that child rather than spending all that time sort of going through all the chaff to find it. And it means they can do their job far better, doesn't it?
And this intelligence operates, we're doing it to add into the core product as standard within the safeguarding sense. But, we've had discussions, and another person that was talking fantastically when we were across in Dubai, and somebody, it's Priya at Century Tech.
Yeah.
That's another example of using that intelligence and the processing to actually bring together all the core information to make it very accessible in terms of where a child's progress is, where the gaps are, and what things they're actually progressing through. Their strengths are, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think we often have this conversation about, the amount of data. We produce more data, we hold more information. But the reality check is, data's only as good as how you interpret it. Yeah. It's only as good as how accessible you make it. Yeah. And it's also only as good as how you interpret it.
Well, that's it. With my computing teacher hat on, there's a difference between data and information is data that has context. And so that's what you're doing. You're taking the data, you're applying contextual intelligence and contextual information to it to make it useful and powerful for teachers who need to make those really important decisions.
Absolutely. So that's a big area for us, and something we'll be showcasing at Bett, alongside some enhancements to our classroom instructional technology that we've got. We've got now a universal app from an iPad point of view to support both the safeguarding and also the classroom interaction in terms of the interaction with students, whether it's showcasing information from the teacher's screen, whether it's interacting with them, doing surveys, doing different types of questioning under the AFL framework, so basketball questioning, quizzing, first to answer, competitive type gaming within the environment. So again, that's another area that we're really expanding. So it's a case of something for all platforms and something that's really broadening to response. And one thing I've seen, and I'm sure you guys recognise as well, is as we travel around the world, as a general kind of averaging, there's different technologies that are dominant. So I certainly see that as we move across to the US, Chromebooks and Google tend to be by far the more dominant platform in terms of new acquisition. And of course, Apple are responding in terms of cheaper iPads, and Microsoft with Windows 10s are looking and providing an alternative solution.
Yeah, Surface Go as well.
Surface Go, yeah, exactly right. So all the vendors are working on that. In the UK, it's probably still more the Microsoft desktops and the iPads that tend to be the things. But again, the Surface Go is a great example of trying to bring that cool technology down to a more attractive price point within education. But actually, as we move further east, even within Europe, but moving out across certainly to the Far East, Android tablets are far more dominant in the classroom and are used. And the truth is, when we start talking then about the complexities of BYOD and children being bring whatever resource you want, and the Middle East is a great example. In the Emirates, lots of the international schools work around the BYOD project, and the children bring different types of devices in. These things come back to that kind of seamless technology, and I always like to dovetail in these conversations. We came full circle to it, earlier about teacher confidence, and one of the challenges with technology is when a teacher's at the front of the classroom, when they're presented with this array of different devices, what really stands out is if you've got a common solution that lets you continue to do what you do well without having to change your behaviour or having to learn a different way to accommodate those different devices. So sometimes less is more. It's about that seamless tech that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes to the quote that you gave from Corinne before about we're not a Google school, we're not an Apple school, we're not a Microsoft school, we're a school.
Exactly right.
And it enables teachers in the classroom to have, gear, technology on the table, that children can access whenever is appropriate, just like they would a ruler, a pencil, a protractor, what have you, making it work whenever it's appropriate for it to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say January is going to be an exciting and a busy month. And Bett, I'm absolutely looking forward to. We shall all be getting together along with many of our other friends and hopefully showcasing and learning and sharing an awful lot about what's good in the UK IT sector for education at the moment. So it's going to be fantastic.
Definitely.
I think on that basis we should wish our viewers a goodbye, and we will catch up again, I'm sure, before Bett on Westwood Radio once again.
Just to mention, before we pack up, we have been making a note of the people we've mentioned, of which there are quite a few. And so
that's a long old list, isn't it? Yeah.
If you're looking to connect with any of the people, we mentioned Priya Lakhani, for example, a few moments ago. These names and their associated website addresses or blogs or Twitter handles, and that will be shared in the show notes. So look out for all of that.
Fantastic, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Check out the complete IT asset management, classroom instruction and safeguarding solution from Net Support.
Hi, this is Bananarama.